In the mountain shadows of a forgotten province in Japan lies a forest few dare to enter. It is a realm of endless silence, where even the wind refuses to stir. This place is known as Akusara's Hollow. Beneath its twisted canopy, people speak of a vengeful spirit, Akusara, the weaver of shadows. Her story is not one of love, but one of betrayal, suffering, and the unquenchable thirst for retribution. They say Akusara was once human, but her fate was sealed by the wickedness of men. This is her tale, told as it has been for generations, a warning to all who let their greed and cruelty go unchecked. Long ago, in the village of Togakushi, Akusara was born into a family of humble artisans. Her father was a weaver of modest skill, and from a young age, Akusara learned the craft. But she possessed an innate talent that surpassed her father's, weaving patterns so intricate they seemed to breathe life into the silk. Her skill brought her family modest wealth, but the villagers grew wary of her as her abilities became increasingly unnatural. It was whispered that Akusara had been marked by the gods or the yokai of the woods. Her silks often depicted haunting imagery, stark forests, flickering shadows, and faces hidden within the folds of fabric. Despite their unease, the villagers could not resist her work, for it brought prosperity to Togakushi. Nobles travel from distant provinces to commission her, their gold feeding the once starving village. But Akusara's rise did not come without jealousy. The village headman, Genshiro, was a greedy and ruthless man. He saw Akusara's talent as a tool for his own ambitions and sought to control her for his gain. When Akusara resisted, wishing to weave only for her family and community, Genshiro devised a plan to bend her to his will. Genshiro spread rumors accusing Akusara of witchcraft. He claimed her silk was cursed, that the images within it foretold doom. To strengthen his claim, he enlisted the help of local priests, bribing them to declare her tapestries works of dark magic. When an unusual illness struck the village, a simple fever blamed on Akusara's cursed loom, the people turned against her. One cold evening, under the guise of a village meeting, Genshiro confronted Akusara. Her family stood in the crowd, powerless to defend her. Genshiro declared her a witch and demanded that she prove her innocence by weaving a tapestry for the gods. She was to create a piece so divine that it would ensure their protection or suffer punishment for her heresy. Akusara was imprisoned in her home and forced to weave the tapestry under constant watch. Genshiro demanded it be completed within 7 days, promising freedom if she succeeded. But the loom provided to her was a cursed object. Unbeknownst to Akusara, Genshiro had acquired it from a wandering merchant known for selling tools tainted by yokai. The loom was said to ensnare the souls of those who used it, feeding on their despair. As Akusara wove, her spirit began to unravel. The loom drew from her deepest fears and anguish, turning her work into something monstrous. The images that appeared on the silk were no longer her own. A barren forest, twisted bodies, and a shadowy figure that loomed over them all. Her once precise patterns dissolved into chaos, the threads tangling and shifting as though alive. By the 7th day, the tapestry was complete, but Akusara had changed. Her eyes were hollow, her fingers worn to the bone, and her voice was a mere whisper. When Genshiro unveiled the tapestry in the village square, the crowd gasped. The images seemed to shift and writhe, and those who looked too long felt a cold dread seep into their bones. Instead of freeing her, Genshiro declared her tapestry proof of her guilt. He ordered Akusara's execution, claiming her work was a blasphemy that would bring ruin upon the village. Bound and beaten, Akusara was dragged to the edge of the forest, where an old shrine to the mountain gods stood forgotten. There, Genshiro decreed she would be left as an offering to appease the spirits she had angered. The villagers, driven by fear and hatred, abandoned her at the shrine, tied to the cursed loom. For 3 days, Akusara remained there, her cries echoing through the forest. When the villagers finally returned, hoping to retrieve the loom, they found the shrine engulfed in darkness. Akusara's body was gone, but her tapestry remained draped over the altar. The cursed loom was now fused to the ground, black threads stretching from its frame like veins. That night, the village was struck by an unnatural storm. Lightning cracked the sky, and the wind carried a faint sound, the rhythmic clatter of a loom. One by one, the villagers who had betrayed Akusara began to disappear. Genshiro was found in his home, his body twisted and lifeless, his face frozen in a mask of terror. Clutched in his hand was a thread of black silk. Akusara had become a Yurei, a vengeful spirit bound to the cursed loom. Her wrath was not indiscriminate. She sought out those who harbored greed, cruelty, and malice, weaving their fates into her endless tapestry. The forest surrounding the shrine became her domain, a place of perpetual twilight, where the sound of her loom would always be heard. It is said that those who enter Akusara's hollow and touch her loom are drawn into her tapestry, their souls becoming threads in her eternal work. Others claim to see her figure moving between the trees, her veiled face obscured, but her hollow eyes visible beneath. She appears to the guilty, her voice a whisper that grows louder until it becomes a scream. Those who see her true form are said to be driven mad, their minds unraveling like the threads of her silk. To this day, the forest near Togakushi remains untouched. The shrine has crumbled, but the loom and tapestry endure, preserved by the curse. Locals leave offerings of rice and silk at the forest's edge, hoping to appease Akusara. They believe that her wrath can be tempered by acts of kindness, though none dare to test this theory. The story of Akusara is told as a warning. Do not let greed blind you to compassion, and do not seek power at the expense of others. It is said that even speaking her name lightly can draw her attention, for she is always listening, always weaving, and her tapestry is never finished. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you again next week.